Hello, creators. How are you guys? It's great to hang out with you again for another Video Creators podcast episode. We are very much looking forward to diving into this topic with you guys about books, actually. We usually talk about video. Why would we go old school and talk about paper and ink, or be it more honest in my case, audio books? Is I don't have a whole lot of time to read as I would like. And I think this is a very important topic to discuss because what I've found, I didn't always have this opinion or this perspective, but I found my more mature years, I guess, that books are very much an inexpensive source of amazing, in-depth, detailed, helpful information. Like, you want to learn from the best of the best, the people who have figured out and solved a lot of the biggest problems that we face, or at least are a step ahead of where we are. Books cost only a few dollars and a little bit of your time, and you can get a lot of really helpful information. And here at Video Creators, we found that there's a set of books that we found to be most helpful with YouTube creators who are trying to get more views, trying to grow their channel, and trying to make more money on their channels. There's a set of books that have been particularly helpful for me here at Video Creators that I find myself recommending over and over and over again in different consultations and calls. And Lennon and Delana are here with me. They're both YouTube strategists on my team, and they have some books that they want to recommend as well. So you guys can tap into this amazing source of helpful information that will help you go from wherever you're at now to taking that next step and being where you want to be on your channel without having to break the bank. Now, and the thing I think I don't appreciate most about these types of things is because, sometimes I'll dive into a book, maybe it has a lot of reviews, but it'll be that's not what I need, or doesn't apply to my situation or whatever. So we want to share books that we think have been vetted against a lot of different YouTube creators and have been tremendously helpful for them, so that these recommendations will help you get to that next level and take that next step on your channel. So we are excited to dive in and make some recommendations here for you guys today. But first of all, I want to introduce you to Lennon and Delana, YouTube strategists on our team who work with our clients and help facilitate a lot of our community stuff and our trainings and group coaching and all that kind of stuff. So how are you two doing today?
We're here.
I know, finally.
Step one, we're here.
Yeah.
If you guys are listening to the podcast, we live stream these normally on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And I've been having quite a bit of issues with my streaming software, my computer. So we're running a little bit behind, but we're here. And you guys want to know why it wasn't working this last time when we thought we were live and everyone else was like, we don't see you?
Why?
It's because I didn't click the go live button.
Wait, are you serious?
I am serious. Because
my
normally
gosh.
when it's scheduled, I just hit go live once and then it just goes live. But this time, because I had to switch to do the manual protocol and everything because the schedule thing had already passed, I forgot that you also then have to click go live on YouTube's end, not just in the software. So I had to click it twice. So yeah.
That means that in the garden and the blessings, in the garden and the blessings, way back in the chat said, hit the go live button, haha, whenever we were having all of those issues. Yeah. And so they were actually right.
I did, but it was there's two of them now. The software, which just starts to stream, but because I'm doing it manually, then I had also started on YouTube side of it anyway. It's kind of like when someone's like, well, why isn't my YouTube channel growing? Well, how many videos have you published so far? 0? Oh. Or my computer's not working. Well, plug it in. That's our level of professionalism here today, guys.
Did you turn it off and turn it back on?
I did. Kind of. I actually literally did my computer. That's what part of the problem here. But anyway, yeah. How are you two doing? Better than my computer is, I hope. And me.
Yeah, I was telling Delana about this while you were off troubleshooting the flux capacitor for this thing. we had a crazy situation happen late last week, and some of my Video Labs students are in the chat here. They will have heard this story. But on Thursday, my daughter, she asked if she could play this Tamagotchi game on our phone, and we said sure. And so she came over and said, "Dad, look at this," and she showed me this button, and I was like, "Yeah, don't ever touch that," because it's the $99 button for gyms for the in-app. So if you play, I know you're a Clash of Clans guy,
yeah,
Tim. So like you can do the in-app purchases,
right?
And I said, don't ever touch that because it costs like $100 each. And she shrank like 4 inches and said, "I'm so sorry." And I said, "Well, what did you push it?" And she said, "I pushed it a lot of times." She had charged $900 from a Tamagotchi game onto our Apple Card. And I was like, "Oh my Lord." And so I just immediately was like, you need to go to your room because Dad's about to have a moment." Can
you get that stuff refunded? I don't even know. I don't even like, shouldn't it like prompt Face ID or something?
Well, so the way that it works is it's like just a push, but now with the way they've updated everything, you can have it to it auto sets as a approve all. So you have to change that. So when she clicks on something, then it's like an approve all setting. So you have to change it rather than it auto drafting the other way. And so I had to appeal it. I appealed it once with Apple. They denied me. I appealed it again. They denied me again. And so then I went to the bank, the credit card company, and they gave us a refund. But they said they still have to appeal it with Apple, but they think it's positive. So as of right now, we don't owe $900 for some dumb Tamagotchi game. But that was stressful. Let me just say.
That was a roller coaster.
How are you doing, Delana? Better than that?
Better or different? I don't know. We close on our house in 4 days. So we're going to do the reinspection this evening, and that's where I am. So cool. Stress is a little up here, but also exciting.
I got the call from the lender to verify your employment, and I was like, "Yep," but they were really confused because they're like, "She says she works at Video Creators," but the legal name of the business is different. So I was like, "Oh yeah, Video Creators is the DBA of our actual business," and she's like, "Oh, that makes sense." So I was like, "Yeah, we got it all." I
told them that twice already.
You know how these people are. They don't. Yeah, they're just pushing buttons, moving papers. One person sounds like everyone else to them, I think sometimes. But cool, congrats on the house. Those of you guys who have questions as we go through this, any comments you want to make sure you tag Maximalist Minibus, who's in the chat. She's moderating for us today. Thank you so much, Mary. We've gotten to know her quite well through Video Labs and our growth network and things. So I'll link to her channel down below. Delana, you want to give her a quick pitch for what her channel's all about?
Yes, Mary is awesome. She works incredibly hard on her channel. She's really great at telling stories in the way that she crafts her content. She's all about by her name, like she kind of pushes against the idea of minimalism, and she travels. She has like a traveling bus, and she has a little dog, and they just kind of travel around, and she tells really great stories of these experiences that she has as she's traveling around the world. And it's just really, really interesting. Highly recommend you go check her out.
Cool. Thank you. Mary, and yes, you guys, again, questions, comment at tag her, and she will take your questions and put them in front of us, and we'll get through as many of them as we can here in just a few minutes, assuming my computer survives. It feels like a airplane is working really hard right now for some reason. I want to introduce you guys. Wait, what? What did I say? I want to introduce you guys.
I don't know.
I want to introduce you guys to a creator named George Gammon. Does that name ring a bell, Delana?
Yes.
You worked with him a few times,
yeah.
and I just did a consultation with him last week, and he wanted me to make sure that I told you, Delana, that it was nothing personal against you, but you were already booked up really full and didn't have any available spots for a consultation for a little while out, and I was the next available one, so he just booked with me instead. So, but he just wanted to make sure that you knew that.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, he's a really cool guy. I had a really fun time getting to know him. So when he started his first consultation with you, Delana, he had about 1,000 subscribers. And about 9 months later or something, here we are. He's at 106,000 subscribers. And we're not talking like some really big niche industry like gaming or this is a retired guy who is talking about macroeconomics and finance. And he is just killing it. And so I asked him in our consultation, like, hey, can we record a quick section and tell us what are the main things you're focusing on that's making the biggest difference in growing your channel, going to 100,000 subscribers in about a little over 6 months' time. And this is what he had to share with you guys. Here's George. I just had a tremendous opportunity of hanging out with George here, talking with him about his YouTube channel. And we've done a couple different calls with George. But George, for people who aren't familiar with you and your content, tell us what your channel is all about.
Well, it's about macroeconomics and central banks. And based on our conversation, Tim, I won't say central banks in the future. I'll make sure I'm specific.
I'm learning. I'm getting there. I was like, this sounds like something I need to avoid, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I'm trying to hook them with the mystery. But we just do whiteboard videos to try to explain things that seem rather complex, but we try to put them in simple terms. And then we do a lot of interviews with guys and gals in the space, in the macroeconomics, finance, the people that you'd see on FinTwit, on financial Twitter. We interview a lot of those people.
Well, when you came and did your first consultation with us back in September, so that would be, what, about 7 or 8 months ago now,
yeah.
I guess?
Yeah.
And you worked with Delana on that. You had about 1,000 subscribers.
Something like that. Yeah.
My gosh, here we are talking like 6 months later, you're at over 100,000 subscribers. So congratulations. That's awesome.
Yes, thank you very much.
I know we've done a few sessions with you. I know Delana has. She's done a few sessions. This is our first time to do one together. But what are some of the key takeaways that you have taken from our sessions, implemented in your channel, that have really contributed to really quick growth here over the past few months?
I think the analytics, first and foremost. It's all about back-end analytics. This is a numbers game. It's not about whether or not YouTube likes you. It's not about the algorithm liking you or not liking you. It's about how long can you keep people on the platform. And if you get hyper focused on your retention rates, your click-through rates, I think it's just a matter of time before you do well. If you're producing videos that people are watching longer than your competitors. So got to get hyper focused on the analytics first and foremost. And then you've got to set up your page, I think your home page, where it prompts people to subscribe. And then they have to know the value proposition. And with the trailer, that's one thing we discussed today. I've actually got to improve on that moving forward. And then I think telling the story, going back to the book you always talk about with primal branding, I'd highly suggest that. And I've noticed, and I actually started doing that inadvertently at the beginning, but I've noticed the power of it, especially in the last few months, with people making t-shirts, as an example, of the code words that you say in your video that only your community knows, or in the comments, they'll reference these words. Even on Twitter, I've got people, even people I interview, in fact, in FinTwit, are referencing some of the words that I use in a lot of my videos, like I said, the no bueno zone, or sometimes if I'm giving some data that seems very scary, I'll tell the audience that it's stiff drink time.
Yeah.
So it just becomes a whole, the community enjoys it. And I think if you're able to focus that as well as the analytics, you'll do extremely well. I
think something that's interesting about your channel is that it could be extremely heady. Like it has that potential, be like about macroeconomics and money and government stuff. It has this, like, normally it could get in this really deep space of like, there's no emotion tied to this at all. It is just straight up, at least my perception is. Maybe other people disagree who are really into it. But what you've done is you've made it more accessible, and you've brought a lot of the human elements to a brand around this thing, that around finance and things. So people are connecting with that, and the information itself is really solid, but people are feeling something now about this topic when they're listening to you talk about it. And that feeling is what compels them to come back and want to watch more and subscribe for more. And I think that's been a really big part of your success, from going from 1,000 to what do we got now? Currently 109,000 subscribers in like 6 or 7, 8 months, something like that.
Yeah, I completely agree, Tim. One thing I'd just add to that is I know a lot of people on your videos, or that call in, or that are in your feed, because I watch your live streams all the time, say, well, if I've got an instructional channel, how do I do storytelling, or how do I make an emotional connection with an audience? And I think one thing that I've tried to do that hopefully has worked well is, to your point, if I'm talking about like a central bank and quantitative easing as an example, to tell the story, I'll use stick figures. And I'll name the stick figures, and we have characters like your friend and family member Fred, or we have Moody the millennial, and I always draw this stick figure with blue hair and a Prius, and I use those stick figures to tell the story of what I'm trying to explain that could be rather complex. So it's just an example of just because you have something that might seem boring or dull or dry and maybe more educational, if you throw some human things in there, make it fun, I think you'll see your retention rates get a lot better.
That's great. If you guys want to check him out, there'll be a link in the show notes to his channel. You can go see what he's doing. Not everything's perfect. That's why we're talking here with him again today, but he is definitely on the right track, doing a lot of things really well. And if you guys want to check it out and see for yourself, you can go click the link down in the show notes and go give George a visit. We would love to work with you as well. We've got a couple different opportunities to do that, whether that be through a one-on-one consultation like what George did, or we have registration actually opening as of today for Video Labs. And I know we have in the chat a whole bunch of Video Labs graduates, as well as people who are currently going through it. In fact, I saw Demetria's Dishes just chatted and said, she said, I should be doing my labs homework right now. So we would love to work with you. If you're not familiar with Video Labs, it is an 8-week process. So you work through, whether with me or Lennon or Delana, to go through this 8-week process of everything you need to know that gets your channel growing, and not just for like, hey, we got you ranked for a week or two, but this is long-term, sustainable, ongoing growth. And we're going to walk you guys through that exact process. The same type of stuff we've been doing with George and a lot of the other creators you've been hearing about here on this. We're gonna be diving into spending a few weeks talking about how the algorithm works, and like the behind the scenes of the type of stuff that YouTube surfaces and doesn't surface, and what they know about your content, what they don't know about your content, and everything about like, how does that system work. We're gonna go dive deep in the algorithm. And then with that information, we're going to spend a few weeks in talking about how do we best craft the content that YouTube systems and viewers will want to watch, and that will be surfaced across this platform, start dominating homepage and suggested traffic. Also, we talk about search. Like, those are the 3 big ones that we focus on: homepage, suggested, and search. And then spending a few weeks as well talking about like what George is doing. How do we focus on our analytics? How do we spot the opportunities for growth? The opportunities of like, I need to focus some time and attention on this on my channel versus there on my channel. And how do we use all the data that's at our fingertips to make good decisions about how we best optimize and move forward, which is what George has done phenomenally well. So we want to teach you guys all that stuff. And it's not just here's some information, good luck. You're working in video calls with me, Lennon, or Delana every single week in a Zoom call. We're going to get into that, and we're going to talk through everything. There's assignments you're going to do every week. So for those of you guys, Right On Writing is here. She went through it. She just gave a super chat. She said, I'll be putting everything you've taught me to work professionally as a creator, presenter for companies' YouTube channels about e-bikes in a couple of weeks. Thank you, Tim, for everything. Yeah, you're welcome. She went through Video Labs, was it like a year ago? And it's just been so much fun to see the amount of success and results people are getting with it. So we do limit it only to 20 creators per group. And so there's limited spots available. So if you're interested, go to videocreators.com/videolabs. and we'd love to work with you for 8 weeks, getting us available on a first come, first serve basis. So videocreators.com/videolabs if you're interested. And we'd love to dive into with that. So everyone in the chat has been, Mary says, Video Labs rocks. And then Dahlia from Welcome to Chickenlandia is saying, do it, guys. So worth it. Since I started working with video creators, my channel is really growing. Yeah, I forget. She actually put some screenshots in our private group. And I don't remember what the stats were off the top of my head, but I remember that was like, it was like 900 some % growth or something like that, if I remember correctly, for her. Do either of you guys remember?
Yeah. I don't remember the exact numbers, but so yeah, Dahlia had done a couple of consults with Delana, and then she's in my Video Labs now, and yeah, she's absolutely slaying it. All of her retention graphs are growing, her numbers are getting better and better. It's so fun. It's so fun to watch.
I think that's what I love most about it, because like I feel good for every creator goes in, because it's a reproducible, repeatable, predictable process that just works. Tested on, I don't even know, probably over 1,000 creators at this point, because I've been running it for a few years. Just updated it all, so it's the same process, but all new information to really help you guys move forward. So it's great. Love it. A lot of people in the chat are talking about it, but let's move on. Let's talk about today's topic here. So we think, let me start that again. Edit this for the audio a little bit better. You guys who are live get the raw, uncut version of this. We think that books are an amazing resource of really valuable information, really inexpensively. So we want to go through a whole bunch of books here, starting with Delana's recommendations. But I want to let you guys know that there's also a link down in the show notes where you can get any of these books for free. If you haven't yet done an Audible trial, it's not sponsored. That's just who I use to go through books, just because I don't have time to read as much as I would like, but I can certainly listen to books on double speed as I'm driving or mowing the lawn or working in my workshop or something like that. So go to videocreators.com/audible. It's an affiliate link in full disclosure, and you can get any of these books, audiobooks we've talked about, for free if you sign up for their free trial, which is how I actually do consume all my books. So absolutely recommend them. Delana, you go first. What are your books? Tell us what they are, a little bit about why and who it might be good for.
Well, I do not use Audible, so I have all of them right here in front of me.
You're a paper person. Old school.
I like to hold my books and highlight and write in them and everything in between. Like my husband and I both joke, we're like, we destroy books. I have all these Post-it notes and everything. This is actually not the worst of it. This one was pretty lucky. He kind of survived. Anyways, my first book is Vlog Like a Boss by Amy Landino. It says Amy Schmitter. I don't know.
Yeah, she got married.
Schmoyer. What's the difference? I'm just kidding. This one I think is really, really good. If you are like just barely getting started into YouTube, and YouTube is like a whole new concept and video creation is a whole new concept for you, this is a really good one just to kind of help you wrap your head around this whole YouTube thing. And she talks a little bit about like camera equipment and stuff like that, but she just has a lot of really, really great things in terms of mindset that you need to have whenever you're going into creating videos, and how you need to be thinking about your videos, and how you need to be like scripting them and planning topics and everything in between. Like this is really great if you're just just barely getting started into YouTube. If you're somebody who is more of a seasoned, like you've been creating videos for a while, then maybe not. There might be a lot of stuff in there that is a little redundant to you that you've maybe watched on YouTube or stuff. But yeah, if you're just getting started, it's a really good one. The next one that I have is Making Ideas Happen by Scott Belsky. Looks like this. And this is a book. I actually have an interesting story behind this that I'm not going to share because I don't want to take up too much time. But this book, when I say that it literally changed my life, I mean that it legitimately was a pivotal point in the way that I thought about my life. And then the action that I took after reading this book. It was the reason that I got started in, making YouTube videos and like really got serious about it at one point, and then started, it changed my career basically. Is just because of the way that this changed my mindset. Now, this book, it sounds really vague, making ideas happen. What it's about is it's specifically created for creative people, which is why I feel like this is such a good book for YouTubers, is because if you're definitely like more of that right-brained, I cannot plan anything or finish anything to save my life, you need to read this book, because it is so, it gives you a whole new perspective on yourself, on how you think about being a creative person and how the creative brain works, and then puts a totally different value in how to use our creative abilities to then organize and then anyways prioritize our creativity and stuff like that. So really, really good. Sorry if I'm like beating this against the microphone.
You're really excited.
I am. I love my books. The next one that I have, I actually haven't finished this, but I don't even need to finish it to recommend it to you. This is Everything is Figureoutable by Marie Forleo. I think that this is a good one because if you're somebody who like, or you want to start a YouTube channel, or you have any endeavor of any sort that you are not really quite sure how to attack that endeavor, including a YouTube channel, this is really, really good. It helps you to break everything down in terms of like, you're going after this thing. Why is it really important to you? And what are you really trying to get from it? And then how do we start to take steps towards figuring that out? So it's really, really inspiring. It's just a great phrase and very empowering, everything like you just get overwhelmed by like, oh, I have this big dream or this big thing that I want to go after. And then you just kind of get frozen analysis paralysis of like, well, I don't know where to start. Even if it's like a big YouTube video that you're planning on filming, if you just like whittle it down, like, hey, everything's figureoutable. I can figure it out. I just gotta break it down. And so, yeah, really, really good. Highly recommend. And the last book, I only have 4, is, this one actually made it pretty well. This one looks brand new, but it is probably the most well-loved out of all of them. This is The Slight Edge. If any of you have heard of this or read this, please let me know in the chat, because this one is also really, really great for creative people. Although it's not specifically written like the way that Making Ideas Happen is written for creative people, this one is all about how all the little things that we do every single day is what adds up to the big changes in our life. So a small example would be like having a healthy body isn't because we ate salad for one day. Having a healthy body is because we made little tiny small decisions all throughout many, many years that built into something big, and so it puts a whole different perspective. The reason I love this one for YouTubers is because I feel like a lot of times whenever we think about our YouTube channel, it's like we're always trying to think about what's like that one thing that I need to do to just like push my channel over the edge. What's the one thing that I need to do to just like flip that switch? Or it's kind of like this mindset that we get into, like, how do I turn on the growth? And the thing that we do kind of every day in our consults and video labs is everything is actually breaking that mentality of it's not one big thing that you do. It's all the little things working together that move your channel forward. And so, that's why I love this book so much, especially for YouTubers. If you can change your mindset into it's not just one thing that I need to focus on, but it's all these little things and how they work together, that will move your channel forward. So
cool.
Those are my books.
Thank you. Love them. Lennon. What do you got?
Well, so I've tried to sort of split mine up between some books for the business side of things, and then also some books for the creative side of things. So, and now, of course, when I'm trying to do this, it just went away. What happened? What happened to me, guys?
You're right here. I see you.
Oh, Lord, help me. Lord help me, please. What happened with my things, guys? This is not appropriate. Okay, here we go. Found it. So my first book is one that I would recommend for any creative person in general. It's called Catching the Big Fish by David Lynch. So if we have any David Lynch fans in the house, this book is really, really cool. What he talks about is this idea of getting into deep work and finding ways to really go, like, we can't catch the big fish until we get to that deep water. And so he talks a lot about the creative process and how we need to really assign time to be able to get into that deep space so we can actually catch those big fish. And he also talks about that, we're not always going to catch those big fish. We just have to, it's a lot of times it's just the action of being there, fishing that is the big action itself. So good. My second one, kind of along the same lines of the creative, is The War of Art by Steven Pressfield, which is one of my favorite books of all time. So if, this was a life changer for me. This is all that inner dialogue that we deal with as artists and creatives, all those things, those little lies that come up that say we're not good enough, we're not capable of doing this thing, all the things that we're battling. It's that internal war that we're having. I think this book is absolutely brilliant. And most people that I've ran across that struggle with those sort of inner monologues, this book was a game changer for them. I have a friend who recommended this book to me, and he is an artist for Hallmark and was recently hired to do a re-illustration of all the Frankenstein books, and just this brilliant artist. And he said he chooses to read it every year because it's that internal battle kind of keeps coming back. Totally worth it. From the business side, I chose Rework by Jason Fried, which is a great book about kind of challenging a lot of the things that we hear as entrepreneurs and those kinds of things. A lot of those, hey, make sure that you're growing to be the biggest business, make sure you're doing all these extra things. It's kind of like, let's not think so much about that thing. Let's think about doing the right things for our business. And so Rework is a really, really great book full of just what I love about it. It's just like a ton of little notes. So you could just read it for an hour or read it for 20 minutes and get a whole lot from it right away, as opposed to feeling like you have to read the whole thing to get some knowledge. I think those are my favorite kind of books because my mom didn't read to me as a child. So it's easier for me to just kind of like tap into it in short little bunches. From the branding side, I chose Zag by Marty Neumeier. So this is that idea. It's kind of like Purple Cow by Seth Godin. It's similar ideas. It's a bite-sized book again, and so I wanted to give you guys some things that were really actionable. And this one is great. It's just that idea that where everybody thinks that they need to go to find their niche, whether this be for your channel, for your brand, for whatever it is, like how can you zag and take a right turn and really find something that helps you to stand out? And that's something we hear often as we're working with creators is how do I stand out in this niche? How do I find a way to really be something different? And so this book is really applicable in that sense. We talk a lot about primal branding. I wanted a book to sort of accompany that. And so I picked one called The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. The Culture Code is, he talks about what are the similarities between a company like Pixar and a group of people that rob banks but never get caught. Like what are the similarities between those cultures and how they operate as people to be able to communicate really well? How are those cultures built, and what helps them to thrive? What helps them to be able to work together as cohesive units? And so whether you're building a team or you're trying to build your own culture and community, I think this book is really, really great. There's a lot of interesting stories within this. So yeah, if you're like me and you like hearing about bizarre crime people that get away with stuff, and you're like, actually, yeah, how did they think through that? I'm not saying you should go rob a bank, but you should just start by reading this book, and then maybe that's a good place to go with that.
I want to know who's like, you know what, we should make a book about Pixar and robbing banks. Like someone.
That's the way my brain works, Tim. So that's like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, yeah, I got to read it.
Interesting. Cool. I got a few books for you guys recommend as well. And I know you guys in the chat are asking for links to all these, and currently my books are there. If you're listening to the podcast, all the links to all of these on Amazon will be down in the show notes. If there's one that sounds interesting to you can go check it out. But I've got a few focusing. The first book I have to recommend is kind of like a really high level. This is going to sound weird. And I know for those of us who are like just want to focus on super practical things, this doesn't sound like it is, but it's called Every Good Endeavor. What's the subtitle? Hold on, I got it here. It's Connecting Your Work to God's Work by Timothy Keller. So it is a faith-based book. But I had a lot of epiphanies and a lot of like light bulb moments while reading this, listening to it, to the audiobook. Mostly because it I think a lot of times we go after things like money and we become addicted to things like work. And I got it wrong. I feel like it's really easy to get sucked up by like chasing money or feeling like I have to keep working in order for my self-worth to be validated or to feel like there's just no room to like slow down or do anything. And I realized through reading that book that I had a lot of unhealthy tendencies and habits when it comes to money and to work in general. But so that book was just really helpful for helping frame an appropriate view of money and work for me. And that was actually way more important than any of the practical stuff, because everyone's like, well, just tell me how to get more money or how to get more views or how do I, it's like, well, hold on. Like, and I kind of feel like, what if you got that thing? What if you got billions of views and subscribers? Like, if you have the wrong foundation underneath of that in terms of what you believe about why this matters and for you and other people, whenever, like, this thing could ruin your life. So anyway, I kind of start off with that one just for that. It's called Every Good Endeavor by Tim Keller. And like I said, it is a faith-based book. So if that's not you, no problem. Just skip it. But I do highly recommend it for any faith-based people out there. Now, the next books I have to recommend are on the business side of really helping me develop how do I make this thing grow and become sustainable? And they were all relevant different parts of my story. First one I'm going to recommend is called Personal MBA. And as if you're like me, you have no background in business experience, you've never ran or operated a business before, this book was really helpful for me when I was first getting started. All of my college and master's degrees are in totally unrelated fields. And so for coming out of those and coming here to business, that was like a really good overview of, I don't have time to go get an MBA, and I actually don't really feel like I need to, but I do need to understand like, how does business work? And that book was a really good overview that helped wet my feet and understand everything I need to kind of think through in order to make something that's revenue producing work really well. So that's Personal MBA. Next business one, it's called The Pumpkin Plan by Mike Michalowicz, and that book was helpful for me when I felt like I had too many things going on. I had clients for this, I had clients for that on YouTube. I was trying to keep up with a YouTube channel and had a family and was doing all these things, and I felt completely stressed and felt completely tapped out, like I had no additional margin in my life and there was no room to make it, because if I couldn't afford to let any of these balls drop that I was constantly juggling, because each one represented revenue of some kind, and it wasn't making enough to be able to let it go. So that book was really helpful for me in terms of thinking, if you want to grow a prize-winning company, i.e. prize, like a big business, then what you need to do is you need to plant the prize-winning seed/idea, water it, nurture it, and then as that seed/idea begins to grow, if to grow a prize-winning pumpkin, you have to cut off all of these other pumpkins that are growing on the vine so that all of the nutrients go to growing one big prize-winning pumpkin. And he described that those other pumpkins are called distractions disguised as opportunities. And so I'm constantly, even today, I said no to an quote opportunity that might have generated a significant amount of resources, a lot of money for us. But I was like, you know what? That is a potential distraction that's disguised as opportunity, and I just need to stay focused on what do we want to be the best in the world at, and just stay focused on this thing. So I turned it down. And I've found that and I actually, because of that book, let go of a lot of clients, which we couldn't afford. But not only did we make it back up, we went far surpassed them where I felt stuck before. So that book was really helpful for me with that. E-Myth, I think, by Michael Gerber is a classic that anyone who's in business, especially on YouTube, needs to read. I recommend this book to so many YouTube creators. One guy read this book. He was stuck at around 6 million subscribers after he read it. He said he read it 5 times back to back. Each time he went through it, he's like, I took different notes, and he quickly became a 12 million subscriber channel. In that time, going from stuck and flat and burnt out and working 80 hours a week to working about 4 hours a week, doubling his subscribers, doubling his revenue, employing 15 people by that time and everything, and working less. So it wasn't about working less. It's about really putting together, understanding your team, putting together a good team, and then how do you systematize everything so that you get this reproducible, guaranteed result every time. He's like, Tim, is that my system, my process for editing a video now is such that if I give my checklist to anyone who knows the mechanics of editing along with my raw footage, I will get back a video that's 100% every single time. I'm no longer editing, and he's got his life and he's got his family and his life and everything back. So really good. I highly recommend it. It was I can't recommend that book enough. E-Myth. I think the subtitle is Why Most Small Businesses Fail and What You Can Do About It, or something like that. The last business book that's really helpful for me is Ready, Fire, Aim by Masterson. Matthew or Michael? Michael Masterson. And I really love that book because it's like the most practical step-by-step how do you grow a business to $1 million business, but earning $1 million a year. And it's, like I said, most practical, step-by-step, do this, do that. You're going to be tempted to do this next. Don't do that. Focus on this instead. So I really highly recommend that. In fact, I listened to that book on audiobook, and then most of these I've actually gone back and purchased so I can be more like Delana, but also because I want to refer back to them. And it's hard to refer back to different sections in an audiobook, but so Ready, Fire, Aim, I certainly bought. E-Myth, I purchased. Personal MBA, Every Good Endeavor. So actually all these books I purchased because they were like the paper copy, because I need to refer to that one. So that is one that I definitely refer back to often. Like, okay, what am I supposed to do next now that I got this part done and moving forward? So highly recommend Ready, Fire, Aim. Now, in terms of growing your channel and making good content on YouTube, got 3 books for you guys here. Number 1, maybe you've heard me recommend it before. It's called A Million Miles in 1,000 Years by Donald Miller. And he's like, what I learned by editing my life. And so what he had one of his biographies, or autobiography, was turned into a major motion picture film. And A Million Miles in 1,000 Years is how do you take a story that was in written format, but now tell your life story, but in a video format. And in good meta fashion, he teaches you how to make really good, engaging content and tell good stories by telling you a really good story. And at first I was watching this mostly with my content in mind, but when I finished it, it just changed everything about how I think about my life, the decisions I make, the story I'm living as a character who wants something, the business I'm leading, everything. So I really highly recommend that you guys check out A Million Miles in 1,000 Years by Donald Miller. Second book for creating better content is Storyworthy by Matthew Dix. And what he does is walk you through how do you just tell a good story. His focus is on oral storytelling. which was great for any of us who are like talking head videos or need to find ways to better engage our audience. If our audience retention graphs are dipping and really poor, this is the most practical step-by-step, like do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, in terms of telling a story. A lot of them, the story books I've read are helpful, but they tend to float around like the theory space, and he does teach the theory, but makes it very practical in terms of what to do and not to do. So I highly recommend that book. And then the final book you've heard me talk about before is Primal Branding by Patrick Hanlon. That is just a no-brainer, must-read. He looks at all the top brands that have developed cult-like audiences, cult-like followings, and just asks, what do these brands all do? What do they all have in common that made it easy for people to fall in love with their brand and want to buy everything they do and want to become a part of everything that they're doing and want to become advocates for this brand and want to root for them and see them succeed? What did all these brands have in common? Well, when you read the book, by the time you get, not even to the end, like just like halfway through, you start realizing, oh, that's why that channel is growing really quickly and mine isn't. Or that's why that video blew up, but this other video I thought would do really well just died. It just makes it very clear. It's a very reproducible process that when you start implementing these things in your content, it just makes it easier for people to fall in love with your content and your brand and your channel and want to become a part of everything that you're doing. So links to all those are down in the description below, down in the show notes. I highly recommend you guys check them out. I know, Delana, you need to take off. You have a consultation you need to head to, so we will say goodbye to you. So thanks for hanging out.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for hanging out. See you later.
While she's gone, Lennon and I are going to jump into some of the questions that you guys asked here. Oh, there's no questions. You guys had no questions.
Nailed it.
Look at that. We gave the moderator a pretty easy one this time. So we did have some comments here. Okay, so this is from the regular chef who says, oh, seriously, Video Labs is well worth it. After applying what I've learned, some of my videos have been getting featured on suggested and homepage, and I've been getting about 1,000 new subscribers per day lately. That's great. Amazing. Are they in your Video Labs or maybe they're in Delana's?
Yeah, not regular chef.
Okay, so maybe it must be with Delana's group. I don't think they're in mine. Well, I know they're not mine, but yeah, that's great. So yeah, if you want to check out Video Labs, videocreators.com/Video Labs. Registration is open now. We only have 20 spots per group available, and they're available on a first come, first served basis. So once they're sold, they are sold. So go check those out. I don't see any other questions about the books or anything. History Treehouse says I have to re-listen to this. So have a great week. All right. Welcome to Chickenlandia says, I'm wondering how I could read books about focusing and saving time when it's so hard for me to find time and focus. How do you do it, Lennon, when you're like, I want to consume content, I want to learn, but I just don't have time to do that?
Yeah, well, what I've been doing lately is really, which I actually heard our producer Trina talking about this, and it struck a chord with me because I'm a consumer. I'm like, I'll just take it all and then batch it up there and sift it out later. But this year, I'm trying to be really focused on 2 or 3 creators that I'm listening to at a period. And if I get through all the things I want to, then I'll maybe switch to somebody else. But yeah, I'm just picking a couple people that I really want to learn from, that I resonate highly with, and then trying to just be really listening with intent, where I don't usually do that. I used to just listen on my drives and stuff, and now I make sure it's like when I'm on a walk or somewhere where I can actually take notes, somewhere where I can be more active, like engaged, as opposed to just passive. Because I think that's where I end up. I thought it was good, but it's also just kind of, I'm not remembering or retaining a lot of that information. So I'm trying to be just doing a lot more active listening. And I think while I may spend less time, I'm retaining a lot more of it.
I heard someone say, yeah, that it's better to listen to one book or read one book over and over again than to try to read 15 books and not do anything with it. So that makes sense to me. I try to do it and fit it in just by redeeming time I otherwise wouldn't be using. Like I said, it's like it's just when I'm driving, and I haven't been doing a whole lot of that lately with the pandemic and things. So, but I have been having more time at home. We just got chickens, and so I've been building a chicken coop and things. So while I'm working out in the garage and building, if I don't have to think, like if it's something that doesn't require a whole lot of thinking, like mowing the lawn or something, I can listen, no problem. Sometimes with building, I need to do some math and figure things out and like, oh, where's that thing, and leave the room or whatever. But for the most part, I try to do it while I'm doing something else as much as possible. We got Right On Cycling. Ask Michelle, I have a question. How do you put all the things into play, particularly primal branding stuff, creating videos without overthinking it and driving yourself crazy? So like when you're learning a ton of stuff, Lennon, how do you decide, like if you're reading a book, how do you just keep going? Like when you got so many things popping up and ideas, and now you know everything you should be doing that you're not doing. How do you respond to that?
Yeah. Well, the danger is not doing anything because you're waiting for things to be perfect, or you're like, well, maybe I'm and maybe this is wrong, but I've become more and more into just do it messy, put it out there, and just start making changes if you feel like you can, because you're going to learn a lot more from the action, even if you're only able to take action on one of those points. So if we're talking primal branding, for instance, it's better to implement 1 to 3 of those ideas than 0 to wait till it's all perfect, although the author himself told us we should have them all lined up before doing it. So, but I still think it's better to take action and do it messy than to not do anything and wait for perfection.
Yeah. I try to just focus, like some of the things I'm listening to, I'm like, okay, I can see how that would be good. But man, I don't know how to tackle that right now. So I'm kind of just listening for the things like, okay, I can do this right now. Like I finished a book called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. I'm like, all right, I can just do these 5 things right now and move forward and do that. So, and then the rest of it, this might sound bad, but I'm just kind of letting it seep in my subconsciousness with how I view and understand the world and how things work, and it helps me make better decisions going forward. But yeah, I tend to focus on like, that's the most burning problem I have right now, which is why I'm reading this book. And here's the top things I can do to move forward, as opposed to trying to do everything. Otherwise I just get overwhelmed. Michelle, Right On Cycling, also says, I use Blinkist to get through books. I do summaries that can be read in under 30 minutes. So if you just need some content, you can do that. I have found for me that I actually need it to last a few hours, because if I just think about something for 30 minutes, like to get the information, or like especially on this type of level, it's like in depth, in detail. After 30 minutes, I'm like probably no longer thinking about it. But if I keep coming back to it multiple times a week, and I spend an hour thinking about it here, 2 hours thinking about it there, like I actually need to put in hours and put in the time to really let it percolate. Is that the right word? My brain, like let it simmer. Those are all weird words, but I don't know if the right one is.
Cooking metaphors here.
I know. I'm hungry right now, I guess. What's the word? Like, just let it seep into your, like, this is how I operate now, not just I got some information in my head and I'm going to forget it in like 2 hours or something, but I just need it to, yeah. I have found for me, I actually do need to take the full, I still listen on double speed, or at minimum 1.5x, depending on how fast the reader talks. But I kind of need to do the hours so that it works for me. Yeah.
And I would say too, I've started thinking about this a lot from a content perspective, as most of us are content, I mean, all of us, right, are content creators. Many of us are educating in some way, shape, or form. Like if you're reading something that's beneficial to your audience, and you're only getting the bullet points, there's some real gems on things that you can expand on within these books that you can be teaching your audience. Like not all of our content that we need to be putting out has to come directly from us. If we're citing our sources and same as what we're doing right here, right? This entire podcast was based on other people's content, but just our own version of that. And so I think it's just important to utilize those opportunities to learn and then teach, because when we teach, we also ingrain that stuff deeper into our conscious as well. Yeah.
Welcome to Chickenlandia. Gave me the right word. Absorb.
There you go.
And Mary said ooze. And then Jack Beanher said marinate, but that's another cooking metaphor. All those. Yeah, I just need to let it absorb. I need to absorb it and think about it for a while. Cool. Well, you guys, I think it's also the difference between like, I want to grow my channel by watching some 5-minute YouTube tip videos and listening to 45-minute podcast episodes here and there versus like spending 8 weeks. See where I'm going with this? See how I did there? 8 weeks in Video Labs with us where we can let you absorb, marinate, and ooze all you want. Not all you want, for 8 weeks. In a non-gross way, in a really helpful way for your YouTube channel. And we are really excited to do that. We look forward to this. One of our favorite things that we do here at Video Creators. So videocreators.com/Video Labs if you want to dive in and absorb everything about how YouTube works in practical ways so that you can actually experience growth. That's what it's about. Incubate. There's another one. If you want to incubate with us from Chickenlandia, that will make sense for her. Oh, well, thank you guys for hanging out. And thank you. We didn't do our quote of the day. Do we have a quote of the day?
I don't have a quote of the day. That's Delana's department, and we had to let her go.
No quote of the day. Sorry. We will be better with our rituals and primal branding language here eventually. But thank you guys for hanging out. And for those of you guys in the chat, it's always fun to see you. Thank you for hanging out and chatting with us. And for the audience, thank you guys as well. It's always good to see you. And we will see you guys again next week for another Video Creators podcast episode. See you guys then. Bye.